Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. And this is our Football Legends segment. And I'm your host, Bobby Butler. And today we have a great show. Former teammate of mine and an all-star NFL receiver, Mr. Mike Haynes. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Man, I've been looking forward to putting you on this show, man, because I tell you what, I love your story. I love your history. I love your game. We're going to get into that. But let me just read off a little bit about you before we get started. You were born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the Who Dat Nation.
Don't say that. Don't say who that.
You attended college at Northern Arizona. The Atlanta Falcons selected you in the seventh round of the 1988 NFL Draft, 166th pick overall. Played in Atlanta for 6 seasons at first, from 1988 to 1993. New Orleans Saints, you went home via free agency in 1994 to 1996 and played 3 seasons with them. And then you came back to Atlanta to end your career for 1 season. I can't wait to talk about that. In 1991, you led the NFL in yards per catch with 22.4 yard average. That was incredible. And here are your career stats, man. You have 428 receptions for 6,588 yards, 47 touchdowns, and you averaged 15.4 yards per catch over your entire 10-year career. Bruh, that's getting it done. So what I want to do right now is give people a chance to see you back in the day. So we're going to watch some footage on you right now.
Okay.
Now, I remember this play right here like it was yesterday because it was the first play we opened the Georgia Dome with.
The very first play, yes, sir.
And Coach Glanville, being the guy he is, he just wanted to go deep the first play, and we did. Chris Miller, Mike Haynes, and we opened the dome. What a way to open the Georgia Dome, right?
Oh my goodness, man. We talked about that for 2 years. When they first started talking about building the dome, that's all that man talked about.
I mean, that was amazing. We're going to talk about the style of offense that we ran as we get along, but we're going to show some of your highlights from your Falcon days and your Saints days.
Okay.
And ladies and gentlemen, every time you see him, he's going deep down the field. He's taking somebody deep. So in other words, he was a guy that can take the roof off of the top. I'm just telling you, he'd go deep, and there's nothing you can do about it. And but also he was a polished receiver. You know, a lot of guys that pretty much played the game that was as fast as Mike was not as polished and running intermediate routes and, you know, just been a full receiver. He was a complete package. And so you see him right there catching balls and, you know, right there in the corner of the end zone, little out pattern. People were so afraid that he'd go deep on them. Now watch this play, ladies and gentlemen. He catch this ball. He left Darryl Green. Darryl Green runs everybody down, right? Here come Darryl Green. Well, there go Darryl Green. Supposedly the fastest NFL player in the history of the game almost, right? But he couldn't catch Mike.
Oh, my goodness.
So
boy, that brings back some memories right there.
I tell you, man, I got to say this, man. And we're going to talk about that. And so, but here's how I like to start, Mike. I like for parents, especially young kids, to hear our stories, right? How we began. Because, you know, when I see you play, I go, man, this guy's a monster. He's probably been a monster like that all his life. Some of us think that NFL ball players are born that way. You and I know that's not true.
No, not true.
Right. It's developed. It's in different ways, right? So let's go back, all right? Because your story is a testimony, man. I tell you, it's just amazing it's just amazing to hear. So let's talk about the beginning, right? So you went to Northern Arizona. You never went to a Power 5 school, right?
I started off at Eastern Arizona Junior College.
Okay. You went
and I went to JV because I didn't play football in high school.
All right. Say that again. Hold on. What did you say?
I did not play my first official football game. I was 18 years old. I was in college. So I didn't play
Wow.
football in high school. I didn't play youth ball. I didn't play Pee Wee, Pop Warner, none of that stuff.
You didn't play
I
Pablo?
uh, I was always the smallest kid in my neighborhood, so I let that intimidate me,
Hmm.
and I thought that I was too small to play, so I did not play.
Right.
And as I got older and started being around more football players, I learned that that's really not the truth.
Hmm.
Football is really not about how big you are, how how strong you are. It's about how well you learn the game and take the time to be successful at what you can do best.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I had a knack for, I was really fast,
Right.
and I used that to my advantage.
Absolutely.
And so I studied the game, and I used the speed that I had and developed into the football player that I was.
Wow. So you went the long route, so to speak. You went to JC.
I took the long route. Yes, so I went
So
to
what did you do in
JC.
high school? Mike, what did you do in high school?
Well, my when I first got into high school, I played the trumpet in the band. So I did end up on the football field, but it was at halftime during games. So I know it's a crazy story,
It
but
is.
you got to figure. When I entered 10th grade, I was 5'1". When I graduated high school, I
Wow.
was 6'1". So I
Wow.
grew a foot from 10th to 12th grade and developed speed over time.
Mhm.
And when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I ended up walking on. I ended up following a friend of mine and walking on at a JUCO.
Wow.
And just like I
That's
said,
amazing.
I've always been a student of things.
Right.
So I
Mhm.
mean, I've studied and I've learned, and
Mhm.
it took a lot of time to. Well, I kind of developed very quickly. So you figure, I started playing football, with JUCO in college, and I got drafted 4 years later. So
Right. Exactly. Wow.
I just learned a lot over a
Wow.
shorter period of time.
So evidently, though, you were a good athlete. I
I
played
was a good
basketball.
athlete.
Right. Did you play
Well,
basketball in high school?
I didn't play any sports in high school. So
Wow.
you got to think about this. I ran track in college, and I played football in college. That's my extent
Wow.
of sports up until I became a pro.
That's amazing all by itself, right there. That's amazing. So I would say to anybody, especially if you have a dream, just keep hope alive. Don't listen
Oh,
to the
absolutely.
naysayers. Don't listen to the naysayers, right?
And don't listen to the folks who tell you you gotta start playing when you in fourth grade. You gotta do, if you got, and don't get me wrong, football's about having talent. You gotta have
Right.
talent. I don't care what level you play at,
That's
you gotta
true.
have talent.
Hmm.
So you don't necessarily have to be playing football 13 years before you get to high school
Right.
in order to be a successful football player.
Right. See, that's amazing because nowadays parents are dragging their kids to camps. You got to get FBU. You got to be ranked this. You got to be ranked that. And I know for me, I had both parents at home. I started playing at a young age, but the good thing about my parents, man, they just supported me. They were not mad at the coach. They were not, saying, well, all the negative that you get from the game today. They were not fighting at the game, at the Pop Warner games and things like that. My parents just supported me. My mom always told me, Bobby, you can do anything you want to do, right? And so the problem I had in my era, because you're a lot younger than me, was the fact that everybody thought football players had to be big guys.
I better get it better.
And so the only negative that I had about the game for me was he's too small, right? He's too small.
And
So
you're right. That's not necessarily the case, man.
that's not necessarily the case. One thing I can say about football, it's an all-inclusive sport. And what I mean by that, you need big guys, you need average sized guys, you need smaller guys to do what they do. Everybody brings a different skill set to the game. And so it's a great game.
Absolutely.
It's a great game. So,
But
all
like
right.
you
So,
said, the good thing about. Go ahead.
go ahead. You go ahead.
I say you absolutely right. The good thing about the game of football is that it takes 11 guys to be successful on the football field.
That's right.
And that makeup is a little bit of everything. I mean,
Hmm.
you got to have the big guys to block for you. You got to have the
Right.
speedy guys. You got to have the smart guys. So, I mean, it's one of those games that it takes a whole lot of people to be really good and successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay. So you started playing sports when you went to college. So you're a track star, right? So the question I want to ask you, because we talked, you said you were born with
Yes, so
speed.
I ran track my junior and senior year,
All right. So how fast were
and I
you?
was really successful at that. Like I said, I was. Look, God blessed me with speed.
Amen.
So I mean, I
Amen.
didn't really have to work hard at it. Now I did work hard to make that speed work for me, but
Right.
God blessed me with speed. So
Yeah.
I ran track my junior and senior year, qualified for the Olympic trials. I went to the trials, ran. It was the same year I got drafted, so I wasn't expecting to make the team, but it was
Uh-huh.
an experience that I just couldn't pass up.
All right.
So
Wow.
I
Oh,
enjoyed
absolutely.
that. Went to Eugene, ran in the trials.
Wow.
I finished ninth out of. I mean, I don't know how many runners they had, but they take the top three plus an
Right.
alternate, and I finished
Right.
ninth.
Right. So how fast were you in the 100 meters, Mike?
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Hello. You can't hear me? I can hear you. Hello. Can you hear me? Mike, can you hear me? Well, while he gets connected, let's look at a few more of his highlights. And you can see, man, this guy was so fast. He was blazing and running by people all the time.
Okay.
Right there. That was a great catch right there. Back in the Falcon days, and back when I was still playing, when I was a younger, older man. Said that way. Chris Miller, great quarterback out of Oregon. That was Mike running a little hitch pattern and then just turning it up and just outrunning, blazing by everybody. I was on that team. I think that was a playoff game in 1991 in New Orleans. We went there as a wild card. They won the division. Back then it was the NFC West. And we went on the next week to play the Washington Redskins and lost in the quarterfinals to the Redskins, who won it all that year. So it was a heck of a year that season. And so, Mike, can you hear me now? I mean, I can see him, but I can't hear him at all. But he was a phenomenal wide receiver. You can see, I mean, he's taking everybody. Every ball you see is pretty much down the field.
Okay, I
And
can hear you, Bobby.
you hear me? Can you hear me? He said, you can't hear me? Can you hear me, Mike? Can you hear me? I guess he still can't hear me. So we'll continue with his highlights, and maybe he'll come in. And I don't, Jeremiah, I don't know what you can do to help him get that, if you can do anything, but that was a great concentration right there. DB coming at him, and quarterback laid it right over his shoulder. What an awesome play. Can you hear me, Mike? Hello? Touchdown. Well, I'll continue to this even though I'm not interviewing, but I continue. I know a little bit about this guy. One of the things about Mike that was so impressive, a lot of guys can run, but Mike truly believed in his speed. I mean, he always felt no one can run him down, no one can catch him. Once he catches that ball, he'll turn around and he'll just start sprinting. You'll watch him, and he's just running by people. You know, 1988 Olympic trial, 100-meter guy. I think he said he finished ninth.
Lost
You know,
audio. I can't hear you.
yeah. So, you know, I think that's Jim Everett who's throwing to him. Used to play for the Los Angeles Rams back in the day. There's another great catch from Mike. There's another one who's running. And watch him just run. He believes in his speed. He believes in his speed. Bam, touchdown. That's incredible. But anyway, Mike was an outstanding ball player. I can say a lot about him. He's a special guy. He came when I was a little older. when I had got a little slower and fast guys started to come, which was telling me that, hey, look, Bobby, I think it could be about time for you to hang up your cleats because we have some guys that can truly run. The year we selected and we drafted Mike in 1988, we drafted 3 receivers. George Thomas out of UNLV, we called him Heat. He was that fast. And
All right,
Mike, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yes.
All right, all right. I was getting ready to tell you a whole story, man.
Uh-oh.
So I asked you a question when you went out. I asked you how fast were you in the 100 meters?
My fastest time I ran 10:15.
10:15?
And 10:15, and that's back when 9:99 was the world record.
Right, exactly. I mean, that was getting it.
So I mean, yeah, that was pushing down the track a bit. So.
Well, one of the things, Mike, I can say about you, watching you play over the years, I see it's a lot of fast guys playing in the NFL. I mean, you're not the only fast guy. Dion wasn't the only fast guy. There's a lot of fast guys, but you really believed in your speed. And when I say that, I've seen you catch hitches, and I see you turn and run. The defense is pursuing and look like they're going to get you. But all of a sudden, you just hit that gear. You trust in your legs. And next thing you know, you're 5-10 yards running in front of people in the end zone. But in 1988, we drafted 3 receivers along with you. You were one of the
Yes.
3. George Thomas, we call him Heat. Now, this guy was a legitimate 4'2", 40 guy, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, this guy, his nickname was Heat. And he came out of UNLV. Beep, beep, road runner, right? And so we drafted him in the 6th round. We took you in the 7th round. I think we took Jane Milling out of Maryland.
In the 11th round.
In the 11th round. And we already had on the roster, we had Stacey Bailey. Who else we had on that roster, receiver, older guy? We had Floyd Dixon.
Aubrey Matthews.
Aubrey Matthews. Those 2 guys were fast. Aubrey Matthews was really fast, right? So let me ask you this question, man. Being drafted in the 7th round, back then we had 12 rounds in the draft back then. How do you feel? Did you feel confident in making the roster your rookie year?
Well, when I came in, like you said, we drafted 3 receivers, and there was only 3 receivers on the roster at the time.
Okay.
We later brought in Jesse Hester, but there was only those 3 receivers on the roster. So you can tell that we needed receivers because we drafted 3 of them. I tell people I wasn't even the first receiver on my team drafted to my team. George was drafted before me, but George came in with a broken foot. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember.
So George came in and he got drafted with a broken foot. So that's how fast that kid was. I mean, he was amazing fast.
He was.
And so I was confident that I was going to make the team. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as playing time or anything like that, my rookie year, I played behind Stacey, and Stacey was in his prime.
Right,
Stacey was a very, very good receiver until he got hurt.
Absolutely.
And that's when I became, I played behind Stacey. He got hurt. I don't know. It was, somewhere around the 9th game of the season. Mm-hmm. And I stepped in and became the starter. And, I started ever since. But I was confident I was going to make the team. I wasn't really sure how much I was going to play my rookie year. But, because we drafted 3 receivers and I know we had needed help at receiver. So I was pretty confident that I was going to make the team.
Right. Well, that's cool. So when you came in 1988, we were pretty much a conventional style offense, right?
Right.
But in 1990, things got crazy. We hired
the man in black,
Eric Glanville, the man in black, as our head coach, who's a defensive guru. But he hired June Jones,
yes.
Davis, created the run and shoot offense. And next thing you know, we got the run and shoot offense. We got Mike Haynes, and then in 1989, we drafted your former college teammate.
We drafted Sean Collins,
first round 1B, came after Deion Sanders, right? And that was in 1989. Then in 1990, we traded for Andre Rison out of
We brought in Andre Rison, absolutely.
And then on top of that, I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe we had Drew Hill, who had came from Houston.
Glenville brought Drew Hill with him.
Right?
And then the following year, we drafted Mike Pritchard.
Mike Pritchard out of Colorado, first
out
round.
of Colorado. So I
Man,
mean,
tell me
June.
something about that group.
You think about this now. I tell people this all the time. There were two things I think that was really instrumental in my career.
Hmm.
One was having June Jones. June
Absolutely,
came in, and he was all about passing the football. And
absolutely.
as a receiver, you gotta love that, man. You gotta love that. He put four receivers on the field at the same time, and
Anytime.
he loved throwing the ball around. So as a receiver, that's a receiver's dream. And then
Right.
my job was to stretch the field.
Absolutely.
And when Jerry Glanville as a head coach, his idea was we're gonna throw it deep first
See,
and then throw it underneath afterwards. So I was the deep guy, so I love that too. And then the other instrumental thing I tell everybody is, I got a chance to practice against you and Deion Sanders
right,
and Tim McKyer. I
right.
practiced against you guys every single day,
Mhm.
and that made my career. I mean, it made me a strong receiver because I
Right.
was playing against the best guys in the league on my team pretty much every day. So when I
Mhm.
got to Sundays it wasn't as hard as it
Right,
was going in practice against you
right,
guys.
right. I tell you, that was amazing. And I'm gonna say this. For me, you came the year before Dion. At that point,
Yes.
even when you came, I was in my 8th year, and what I was an old pro. And what I mean by that, I was a guy who I played the game, I studied, but the excitement in my game was gone. I just went to work. It was like work for me. And then you guys came along. Dion came, and next thing you know, I started getting happy again. The scoring touchdown, I started throwing my hands up, right?
Let me
Glenn,
tell
we
you.
scored the first play of the game. You scored a touchdown.
I tell you what. Let me tell you what I learned from you.
Uh-huh.
You was the film guy. You was the guy who was gonna study, study,
Oh yeah.
study, study, study. And I looked at that and I'm like, man, if I had the knowledge of going into a game knowing exactly what that guy was gonna do to me, how much better could I be at that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's where you were. You studied and you watched film, and I was like, man, I got to be like that. So I
Right.
did the same thing. I studied, and when I got to Sundays, I knew exactly how my guy was going to play me. I
Mm-hmm.
knew exactly what he was going to do on what routes I ran. So that made
Mm-hmm.
it pretty easy for me, especially because I mean,
Absolutely.
offensive guy, we know where we're going. Defense got to guess at it.
We're guessing,
But when
right?
you know what he's going to do, oh my goodness, that
Absolutely.
makes it so much easier.
Well, for me, Mike, I know your game always evolves. When I came in
Absolutely.
as a young guy, I was the fast guy, and so with that, I played with my athletic ability. Until one night, I was in a jazz club in Atlanta, who my cousin was a former Falcon, Jim Cannonball Butler, owned,
Hmm.
and I met the great Lem Barney. He was a great corner, Hall of Fame corner at the Detroit Lions. And he said, man, I watched you play. You cover well. And I'm going, like, Lem Barney telling me I cover well? Man, I was feeling some kind of way, right? And then he said, well, how do you study film? And very proudly, Mike, I told him, bro, I don't study film. When I tell you, he went off on me as if I was his kid. Took me in the back office and started breaking things down to me and started to teach me why I needed to. That changed my life. It changed my life. And so I picked it up. And then Fred Bruni became the secondary coach. And me and Fred taught me so much on how to study tape. And so that took my game to another level because at the end of my career, when I couldn't run anymore, I could hang around a little bit longer because I understood the game. So
Right.
there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that.
And that story right there it's amazing how the game is being paid forward by the past
Oh,
players. And I
absolutely.
love that. I mean, we as players, it's our responsibility to pass the game down, and
Absolutely.
especially when you can teach the next generation of football players how
Hmm.
to play the game. I mean, and don't get me wrong, because the guys that play now, they much more talented than we were. They
Oh,
faster,
absolutely.
bigger, stronger, but still, the knowledge of the game is when you can pass that stuff down to them. It's amazing. And I tell this funny story because as a rookie, I was drafted to be the kickoff and punt return guy,
Okay.
and I did that my rookie year.
Okay.
And then we drafted Dion,
Ah,
and
right.
I was comfortable as the kickoff and punt return guy, and wasn't playing in offense much, but I
Hmm.
was comfortable as the kickoff return guy. When we drafted Dion, they didn't need me to do that anymore. So
Right.
now
Exactly.
I had to adjust my game to be able to make the club the next year because they didn't need me to do what they drafted me for. So
Right.
I adjusted my game and became better at being a receiver, more
Mhm.
polished receiver, and tried to be smart about it. And end up getting the starting job. And till the day I retired, I always studied the game. Always tried to be better every time I go out on the field.
Man, that's awesome, and that's incredible. But one of the things that was so exciting for me at the end of my career was the fact that, the youth movement in Atlanta. We just talked about the receiving core and the group that you had. Chris Miller was still a young quarterback, and he was
Yeah.
slinging the ball, right? And so you take that kind of offense, that explosive offense, and then on defense, we're blitzing every down. We play very aggressive defense, bump and run in your face. Dion on one side, Tim McCarr, Bruce Pickens, myself, Scott Case, Jesse Tuggle, Andre Bruce. I mean, I'm just telling you, man, that was a wild defense. And next thing you know, in 1991, we get it turned around. Brian Jordan out there. Brian Jordan was the best strong safety in pro football, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely,
I mean, the
absolutely.
best.
No question, no question.
And
Let
so
me
we
tell
got
you,
that. Go ahead.
we had as an offensive football player.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when the defense is on the field, we are sitting there studying plays, talking about what we're gonna do next.
Right.
You guys were so exciting that we stood out and we watched you guys. I kid you not. We watched you guys because
Right.
you guys were so excited. You never knew what was going to happen, but you knew
You never
something big was
knew.
coming.
And we
That
and
was
we
so
ever
much fun for us.
and whoever turned the ball over, right? We got the ball, and Glanville, he was the guy who was pushing all this stuff forward because nobody would tell you to intercept the ball and look the pitcher to the next guy.
I know
I mean, we were
exactly.
playing rugby. We were playing rugby. Larry, throw it back to Dion. And it's amazing. I got to say this, talking about that. I think it was 1988. No, it had to be 1989, right? We're playing in New Orleans, and we're playing 22-man, and I'm on the slot, and I get an interception. And I turn around, and I see the open field, and I'm trying to get it. I'm getting it. I'm running. Next thing you know, I felt somebody hit me on my hip, right? And I'm doing this with my hand, and I look around, it's Dion. He said, "Give me the ball."
Good boy.
And Mike, I think I'm gonna make
You know,
it. I think I'm gonna make it, right? And so all of a sudden, I pitched Dion the ball, and he went like, like you pitched to
you
me.
know, hey, look, I'll tell you the truth, man. It was, he thought that was his right. If you catch the interception, it's his right to get that ball from him. So, man, he knew it. And then, that's what made the game more exciting, man. We had so much fun. The other thing was, you guys brought 10 hats to the ball every time, man.
Right.
As an offensive player, you never want. I mean, I'm like, I don't want to catch the ball and have 10 hats
10 guys
on me all the time. That was amazing, man. To have that, he wants all the hats to the ball, and you guys flew around just like that. So,
and we started practice every day doing pursuit drill. I'm 32, 33 years old. The first thing I do in practice,
doing pursuit,
run into the ball. But yeah, that was an exciting time. I mean, 1991. I mean, we were explosive. We had it working on both sides of the field, offense and defense. We had the community behind us. We had MC Hammer and his gang followed us. Too legit to
MC
quit.
Hammer.
They became our thing.
Evander Holyfield.
Travis Tritt.
Tritt, yes. Oh my goodness, man.
That was so much fun. And then we came back in 1990.
And that's the reason why the 91 Falcons, they voted us the most exciting team ever, the 1991 Falcons, which was really cool. They made the whole documentary about it. That was cool.
That was really cool. Really, it was a lot of fun. So in 1992, after that great season, we came back and we opened the Georgia Dome. I played my whole career up until that point, 11 seasons out in Fulton County Stadium. And then my last year in 1992, we went to the Georgia Dome. And tell me what it was like. You said for 2 weeks before that game, Glanville said, we're going to throw the ball deep. We're going to throw the ball deep in the first place.
2 weeks, 2 years before that game. When they first started talking about building the dome, Glanville started talking about we're going to score in the first play. We're going to score in the first play. We're going to score. And he said that, I mean, up until opening day. And, you got to know Glanville.
Right.
You
You
know
got
he was very serious about that.
that's true.
And
That's true.
we go out, and it just so happened we didn't get the ball first. They got the ball first. They went down and I
Right.
think they kicked the field goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went out. Tony, what was Tony's last name?
Smith,
Tony Jones.
Tony
Tony
Jones.
Smith. Tony Smith.
Mm-hmm.
He ran the ball back. I think to the I don't know what it was. So, and then
Mm-hmm.
the very first play of the game, he called the play, and we just went balls out, man. Went for a touchdown. And you talking about that place exploding?
It exploded.
Unbelievable! That place
It
exploded, man.
exploded. It did. So here's a great thing, fans. All right. So that was a preseason game against the Philadelphia Eagles, which was nationally televised because we opened the
Absolutely.
dome. They had Reggie White, Randall Cunningham, Chris Carter. I mean, they had that group. They were a special group coached by Buddy Ryan, who's a
Buddy
defensive
Ryan,
guru.
yes.
That's right. He's the same coach as Jerry Glanville. And so we opened up with an explosion in preseason. But after the preseason, we opened up game one of that season, 1992 season, against the New York Jets.
New York Jets. Yeah.
And what did we do there in the first play of the game?
Well, I actually, and I tell people that I actually caught the first touchdown. You know, I tell everybody I caught the first touchdown in the Georgia Dome.
Right.
And so the trivia is always who caught first touchdown. I say I caught it preseason. Who caught it regular season? Well, it just so happened I caught the first touchdown regular season also. We did the same thing. We came out and went down and scored, man. So
Exactly.
I ended up scoring 2 touchdowns that game. So we had a really good game against the Jets that year. Yeah.
Right. That was awesome, man. I tell you what, that was a fun time, man. It almost reminded me, Mike, of when we used to play sandlot football back in South Florida, right? Just wide open, just doing anything, just having a great time. That's cool, man.
I think that's what football is meant to be, man. You're supposed to have fun playing the game. I don't care what. And I tell my son this all the time. I don't care what level you play at. You gotta have fun playing this game because it is a game. Now, don't get me wrong. It was our jobs.
It was our job,
but it's still a game, and you had to enjoy. And man, that '91 season was the most fun I've had in football ever. So
I'll never forget it. It sticks with me forever. So you left the Falcons via free agency. In 1994, and you went home to play for your hometown team. What was that experience like?
You know, I really didn't want to leave the Falcons. And June Jones didn't want me to leave. And, you know, but the Falcons made me a transitional player, which meant that anything that I go out and shop myself around, they had the opportunity to match.
The match, right.
So my thinking was, I'm going to go out and get a contract from my hometown team. And so if the Falcons didn't match it, I go home to play. And if they did, I stay home and play. So I chose New Orleans because I didn't think that they were going to let me go and play against them.
For New Orleans, right, exactly.
For New Orleans. And so New Orleans decided that they're going to give me enough money that the Falcons won't match it. And they did. And they end up not matching it. So I end up becoming a Saint. And so I spent 3 seasons down there. When I got my sanity back, I came back and played for the Falcons again. So I came back to retire here.
I tell you, but when you went to New Orleans, Mike, you were very productive. I mean, you were still.
It was my it was right. It was my 7th year. Was my first year with the Saints. So I was. It was my 6th year, I should say. It was my 6th year. So I was still, you know, really productive at being a good receiver. So I went down there with the idea that, you know, I can still do some things on offensive side of the ball. So I did. So I mean, you know, I did enough that when it was time to become a free agent again, the Falcons say you got to come on back home. So
right, exactly. That's awesome, man. I mean that's an awesome story. Well, look, man, you had a great career. You ended it here in Atlanta. You know, you started in Atlanta, you ended it here, and you had a chance to go back home where you were born and play a few years in front of your hometown people. I'm quite sure you had to you had to pay a lot of tickets every week.
Oh yes, sir.
Right? So when you left the game after your 10th year, did you feel like you was finished at that point?
No. I knew I had years to play, but I had just gotten married and we had just started a family. Right. And I tell people like this: football became my job, And when it became my job, it was time for me to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I was no longer having as much fun as I did when I
Right.
was younger.
Right.
And when, when Sundays came and I woke up and be like, oh man, I got to go play a game. That's when I knew it was time for me to walk away. And like I said, we had our first baby, and
Right.
so family became important. And I always say to myself that, if I miss it, I was going to come back and play because I
Right.
still had teams. Teams were calling me 2 years after, still come
After,
work,
right.
and I just didn't miss it,
Right.
and so I just didn't come back.
Right. That's awesome. So, Mike, tell everybody right now what you've been up to. First of all, tell me about your son. Tell everybody about your son.
My son is 13 years old. He just turned 13 in August, and he plays receiver on the 8th grade Cambridge feeder team. And I'm a proud dad when I say this, but that kid's blessed with speed. Oh my goodness, that kid can run. He is, everybody tells me he is noticeably faster than everybody else in our
Right.
league. I'm not talking about our team. I'm talking about our league.
Read.
So that kid can run, and
That's
all he wants to do is play receiver. He wears number 81, and I mean, I am proud dad because I mean he wants to be just like his dad, which is the coolest thing. And I, being that I was a professional football player, I try to just stay out of his way. I don't want him to play for me. I want him to play for him.
right. Exactly.
And he seems to be enjoying this game. And he started playing, I think, 5th grade.
Right.
And unlike my stories when I started when I was
Right.
18, and he is really enjoying the game. And I help coach the team. I coach the receivers and the DBs, and I'm almost as much fun as when I played. I am having that much fun because at that age, the game is just pure, man. They're just out having fun, and every day come in, they learn something, and you can see the excitement on their face when they learn something, which is really cool.
Well, I tell you, there's nothing like that. All the years I played football for 24 years, including Pop Warner, high school and college and the NFL. I love playing football. I love the game today. But when I stopped playing for the Falcons, I started coaching my boys. I got 4 boys, you know that. I started coaching them in
Yes,
basketball. It was absolutely the best time of my life, man. And I'll
absolutely,
never
I
forget
agree with
those
that.
years. It just filled me up to be able to coach them. And we had a ball. And so with that being said, before we leave, tell everybody what you're doing today.
I currently own a company called Straight Up Sports, and we manage the North Georgia Touchdown Club. The North Georgia Touchdown Club represents 29 high schools in North Fulton and Forsyth, and we do events for them. We recognize kids for doing what they're supposed to do. So we have all our 29 coaches nominate kids to us. We put on banquets and we do all-star games, and we make sure those kids understand that it's a gift that you get to play this game, the wonderful game of football. So, and we reward them and we recognize them for just doing what they're supposed to do. And most of those kids, they love to play the game, so we make sure we make a big deal out of it.
Right.
This year, because of the
Mhm.
COVID-19, we're not having a touchdown club this year, but we still will recognize all of our kids the same way we did. We just won't gather into a
Yeah.
large meeting. So, our last year, our banquets averaged 600 folks, and
Wow.
we recognize kids because that's what you're supposed to do. Those kids are
Man,
supposed to earn the right to be recognized, so we do that.
absolutely. Well, man, thank you so much for what you do in our community. And man, hey, man, we have fun being teammates, and we still interact. And
Absolutely, man, we did.
we do football camps together. We do a lot of stuff together still, man. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, if you like the video, like it and share it. This is 100 Yards of Football, our Football Legends segment. And Mike Haynes, thank you for being our guest today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate going down memory lane.
That's my pleasure.